Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And as always, we thank all of you for joining us in live broadcasts. We appreciate your patronage and look forward to ongoing fellowship. I am joined this evening by Marshall Masters of Yao, USA. Marshall, are you there, brother?
I'm here, Zen.
All right, excellent. And I'm looking forward to this interview. I know that you keep up with a lot of information and are releasing a lot of just incredible stories, and you've got a pulse on the events and what's happening in the world. And so, if you would, can you just share your website, contact information, Facebook, YouTube, anything of that nature that you'd like to share?
Just go to my Yowza site. That's YOWUSA.com. Also, MarshallMasters.com. And that'll get you to all my articles and link you out to everything else I do. And it's a good place to start, particularly if you're interested in Planet X. That's what I've been reporting most of the time. And also, I've been writing articles on current situation with Q and QAnon, what's happening in politics, because all of it is, in my opinion, directly related to what is coming our way. So we're in a, if you will, a power game of musical chairs, and
We lost you there for a second, Marshall. Now, he did say that he was having weather, and so
are you guys
okay,
hearing me?
yeah. You went off for just a few minutes, and I just just about 10, 15 seconds. But I did let the listening audience know that you had said that there was weather happening out there as well, and so just to be aware. But yes, we can hear you, brother.
Good. Yeah, it's affecting. I'm on metered Wi-Fi, and it's not doing too well with this. So, thanks for holding in there. Yeah, I see the poor connection alerts, and we'll just have to soldier through.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me also, if you want to, just email me your phone number, and then that way, if we do have bad connection, I can just call you directly that way if you have a landline or anything.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be
And
back up.
yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. Great. And so hopefully, everything will be good, but at least we do have a plan in place. But Marshall also is one of the individuals that was able to release the Kolbrin Bible text, which, if people have not heard or read, is one of my most favorite manuscripts, ancient manuscripts, and goes into great detail on a Planet X, calls it the Destroyer, speaks about its return and its involvement in several cataclysmic events prior, including even what was the Exodus and things of that nature. And I do believe that it is also connected to what is revealed in Revelation, the scriptures, as wormwood. And it even speaks about how the return of the destroyer, that it has a red dust that seems to accompany it, and this red dust is responsible for even turning the rivers and the oceans into blood. And this is one of the signs with the return of wormwood. And it also speaks about this as this particular object destroying a mountain cast into the sea, destroying a third of the ships, a third of the creatures, and just very cataclysmic event. And so you've been reporting a lot on this. And so if you would, can you talk a little bit about, Planet X and what you are seeing or hearing, or what you know about what's coming?
Well, first off, you can tell everybody that they'd want to go to my website and look at my article, Wormwood 2028. And
2028. That's very
that's
interesting.
that's right. And then I explain in there what wormwood is, and you're going to see an image of Nemesis next to the sun. You're going to see 3 of the planets around the sun from from a different observation. The problem with Planet X is it's like UFOs, and you can have mountains and mountains of evidence, but let's be honest, people aren't going to believe it until an alien is eating their face.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. The power of human denial is heavy. With this, people come to this topic principally through dreams, visions, and premonitions, and which I believe is heaven's way of working around the media suppression that's going on. And because there is a very active program, and I'm talking about going back 50 years, of suppressing information about what is coming our way. So consequently, people, when you tell them about it, they look at it, but they can't process it. Because if you're not able to project into the science, you could look at the science of a thing and understand it. But if you don't know what you're looking at other than you've never seen anything like it before, you're totally at disadvantage. And so the mind will jump to whatever escape mechanism it can find. And this is the big problem. But there are so many people out there that are following the topic and follow my work over the years. It's kind of funny. I was hearing some frustrated emails. People were going, well, there's not so many new pictures of Planet X these days. It must not be there. And I answered and said, you ever heard of COVID? Yeah, we're all in lockdown. Who's outside taking pictures?
Right.
Okay. And so that's the power of human denial. But it's coming. And we will, by and by, we're going to all see it. And then people are going to still be in denial after they see it. And actually, in the early part of it, it's going to be very beautiful.
Now,
first comes the beauty, and then comes the dying and the screaming and the horror, So I explain everything in that. What wormwood essentially is, it's a part of it's a satellite of Nemesis. It's in its debris field. And in this debris field is also the iron oxide dust. This is in the first plague of Exodus. This is what turns the water red. Go to a brickyard and say, hey, how do you make those beautiful red fired bricks? And they say, well, we just take the usual old clay mixture and we throw in some iron dust. And that's it. That's how you make red bricks. That's how you make red water. Now, the real thing is the water turns red, but then the water turns green. Algae. Okay. Because this is going to be what's going to be falling is shrubbersite. And this stuff has the basic, Big Mac, love it kind of nutrition for algae. And they're going to bloom on this. And then the algae are going to produce microcystin, which is a toxin and is strong enough to kill men and cattle. And so remember in the plagues of Exodus, the frogs all come out of the rivers because they can, because the microcystin is literally burning their skin off, burning their eyes. The fish can't get away, and so the fish die. So the frogs get out, then the fish die, then, oh my gosh, you got all of that. That's going to, with the flies and the gnats and whatnot. So the thing is that people have to understand the Bible in many senses is a preparatory of what's going to happen with Nemesis. But people need to understand it is a historical text. It is allegory. And that is the genius of it, is the allegory, because the stories compel and hold and convey this essential basic knowledge over a span of thousands of years. And if you take the 10 plagues of Exodus and you reorder them scientifically, the dots connect. All the dots connect. Remember the 8th plague, the boils?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I believe it's called Shechem is the term. Well, those are ash boils. The ash boils are the result of volcanic eruptions, and the volcanic ash gets into the pores of your skin like little glass knives, and it causes the most horrible ulcers on the skin, just terribly painful. They take a long time to heal. Yes, and I want to give a little tip here to your listeners. You know, you find yourself in this situation and there's ashfall everywhere. You got to get it off your skin, all your exposed skin. You got to get it off. The best thing to do is, if you got a couple of old long sleeve shirts, one from when you were a bigger guy or gal maybe, and one not so you could wear one over the other. That's good to do. But wherever the ash contacts on your skin during the day, you got to wash it off. And if you don't have water to wash it off, dig into the earth for clean soil or clean clay and use that. All right. But you got to get that ash off your body, or you're going to develop the most horrible sores. Terribly painful, terribly distressing. So keep that in mind.
A couple questions about the article here. For those that have pulled it up, where's the image from? With it looks like, an object close to the sun with a lot of pieces of other, smaller, looks like asteroid type.
Right. Let me explain that for your listeners. And if you click on it, it'll go big screen. But this is an image that was posted by Planet X News live stream report. And they did that on July 8th, and it features a July 5th, 2020 image by the SOHO Solar Observatory. I've been following SOHO since 2002. It's an old bird.
For people that don't know what SOHO is, what is SOHO?
SOHO is a solar observatory, and it is if you would think of it as a kind of a little racetrack pattern between us and the sun. And it's used to observe the sun and what is around the sun. And so we've always, because the Nemesis system is in a parallel orbit to us, we're always tracking. It's always on the other side of the sun. We're on this side of the sun. We're slowly merging towards each other. But for the folks that are looking at, let me tell you what you are looking at. Now, you're on the right-hand side, you see what looks like a round ball or a planet or a circle or whatever. That's the occlusion disk on SOHO. All right. And so the occlusion disk gives you, we're looking off, if you will, to a little off to the left-hand side of the view. It's a much wider view. Now, if you scroll down to Soho image analysis, and just go down where you see Soho image analysis, you'll see that what I do is I put a crosshair so that you can see the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the plane of our solar system. Extends from the center of the sun outwards to the 12 signs of the zodiac, the plane of our system. And in this, what you are seeing is Nemesis is the big ball off the left-hand side of that line. It's a brown dwarf star, and it is the companion star to our sun. All those objects around it are objects, planets, moons, dwarf planets, large satellites, whatever. It's a constellation of all kinds of stuff. All right. And on top of that, what you can't see in here is a vast cloud of debris surrounding it. But here, the sun, our sun's soul, is having an electrical interaction with Nemesis. Now, I've been watching Soho for so many years, and when I first looked at this, I'm going, okay, I always do my due diligence, which includes looking for Photoshop. No Photoshop, no sundogs, no lens flares, no nothing. Authentic. This is the real McCoy. This is the real deal. Short of an alien eating your face, you're looking at emesis.
Okay, another question with regard to the 2028 and that particular date. And the reason I find it of interest is because of the Psalms 90, 10. It speaks about how the fig tree generation, which is, in my opinion, is connected to the recreation of the nation state of Israel. It says that it would be 70 years or 80 years in strength, and that would put us out to 2028. And so why do you have that particular date connected to this article and this particular object?
That's interesting. I didn't even know that. This is a straight science call. Scroll down the page to the heading Wormwood Alignment. Go down to the Wormwood Alignment. Let your listeners do that too, and they're following along.
Okay.
Okay. And
all right.
Now, you see the trajectory, the orbit?
Yes.
And Earth. I have been tracking Nibiru since January 2013. Let me repeat that. I have been tracking and observing Nibiru since 2013, January. Based on that, on the observations that we have been making in various ways, when we first did it, we were actually calling it blue bonnet, all right? Because it reminded me of blue bonnet flowers from Texas. But it was really Nibiru, which is the outermost object. And what happened was in all those observations that we made from Turrialba, the government shut us down. They went up there, they took a university webcam that was spectacular and replaced it with a webcam that I think the camera was used in the original Kennedy-Nixon debate. I mean, it was so old you can't believe. And on top of that, they pointed it at the ground so that we wouldn't be able to use that site to make observations. But we did long enough to determine that the North Pole of Nemesis, like the North Pole of the planet Uranus, always points at the sun. And we were able to determine that and the relative distance it's traveling. And so, given the fact that it's going now into its rapid acceleration phase very soon, where its speed will double. I mean, it's pedal to the metal. It's going to whip around and whip around the sun. It'll pass overhead. It'll cross on top of our orbit. And when we see it, it'll be spectacular. It'll be beautiful. And then we start dying. And then after spectacular and beautiful is going and down and we're dying, it passes between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter and goes into the southern skies. However, when it reaches the ecliptic on the other side of the sun, we're going to be on the other side of the sun as well. And this will trigger a pole shift event. So, all things being equal, clean out the guest room. Hell's coming for a darn long visit.
And okay, again, with regard to the 2028, is that because it's going to take that long for it to do this whip around and come back towards the Earth? Is that why the 7 years out?
2028 is, and I put it in the article, it comes down to, I look at all the factors, and it comes down to you make a gut call. 2028 was a gut call. It could be 2027 to 2010, but that to me is 2028. Excuse me. It could be 2027 to 2030. But again, 2028 is where I believe, just based on, I've been watching this doggone thing for 7 years, So there it is. That's the reason why I'm calling it for that. And what'll happen is Nemesis is going to be somewhere inside that big field, and what you see in that picture, by the way, what's going at the sun is a coronal mass ejection. And you're seeing the solar flare and the plasma as well. And it's all directed at Nemesis and its objects. So that picture, when I saw it, I was stunned because the satellites are really, really heavily monitored. And now we have other satellites, another solar observatory that is starting to show this object showed up on it. And then all of a sudden, huge chunks of reporting time start missing. And so they're sponging. But this picture that this guy, he got, it's the real deal. And it shouldn't have got out. So there was somebody inside that decided it was time to leak it. And this picture from Planet X News, he got it from a reliable source. This is the kind of thing that if I were in the government and I wanted to send a smoking gun picture, leak out something that would be hugely impacting. All right. This is exactly what I would set out, because this shows that Nemesis has just finished crossing the ecliptic, which is accompanied by a Nemesis-directed CME and its satellites. And it's a very massive event, which indicates the electric universe theory, does, in fact, does explain this, and it also explains other dangers. But if you're going to get a picture of Nemesis, on its way in, hot damn, this is the one. This is the bomb, baby. This is the bomb.
That's again, very interesting to me that it connects to the timeline that myself and others have been looking for with regard to the end of the fig tree generation. All right, hold on, Marshall. We'll be right back for a second.
Sure.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Jim Ram, retired. In early 2012, I was facing a laundry list of chronic health conditions that my physician was telling me were incurable. I knew there had to be a better way, and I learned how I could reverse every one of my ailments with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. In just a few months, I was able to reverse high blood pressure, gastric reflux, sleep apnea, arthritis, degenerative disc disease, heart arrhythmia, AFib, and many more. And I've lost over 70 pounds and kept it off. Now I'm hosting a radio program that's dedicated to helping my listeners do the same. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're sick of being used as an ATM by your doctor, then you'll want to tune into the Your DIY Health radio program here on Truth Frequency Radio every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern and 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are EFR, your protection from deception.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
On Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. And indeed they believe that they these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past. Time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien craft.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second portion. I do want to go into some of the Q stuff. I'm not very familiar with that, but before we do so, can you share with us how you were entrusted with and able to publish the Kolbrin Bible text? Marshall, are you there? We may have lost him. Hold on.
Hold on a second. I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
I had
no problem.
muted my mic during the break so I didn't interrupt you. And so I forgot to unmute.
Okay, no problem.
Just the Kolbrin Bible it was part of our research on Planet X. And one of my researchers in Australia had obtained a copy of it. And he was reading it, and for information about Planet X, and it's called The Destroyer there, and actually tremendous amount of information from the Egyptians, and the Celts mention it briefly in passing. They call it the Frightener, but the Hebrews and the Egyptians called it the Destroyer. And I was, my first reaction was, it's what, the Hoochie Coochie Princess shoot the arrow in the sky and the bad guy falls. And, Steve was like, oh, Marshall, why don't you just shut up and read it? No, okay, shut up. Why, moi. And so I figured out, okay, I'm just going to analyze this thing and blow it out. Well, I'm reading, and I'm a page and a half into the book, and it answers the big bada boom question of Big Bang Theory, which happened to be a real hot button for me when back in the 80s, 86 to 88, I was a science feature producer with CNN. And that was the big story of the day, Big Bang Theory. And this book actually explains exactly 3,600 years ago, the Egyptians knew exactly the same thing. It took us billions and billions and billions of dollars to figure out. And so the book is incredibly laconic, and it's powerful. And at that time, with my publishing business, I was working with another couple of publishers, and you're doing cross-licensing deals, language editions, things like that. And one of them in India had, from a rare book dealer in London, acquired a full copy of the Kolbrin. And he had then made an electronic version of it, and he was going to publish it. And his wife went totally unhinged on him because there's 11 books, and the 11th book is the Britain book, and it contains the only third-party actual historical account of Yeshua. This was a Celt who actually walked with Yeshua. So this is the story in there is a biographical sketch of Yeshua and his family. And I was fascinated about that. And I'll tell you personally what it made real to me was this Celtic historian said, Mary, mother of Yeshua, would tell her son, it's really nice that you're saving the world. It's an important job. But, hey, could you bring home a few more shekels? And when I heard that and read that, I was like, That's it. That's a Jewish mother. Go ahead, save the world, bring home some shekels. That is a Jewish mom. So that was all the provenance I needed. But it's very, very beautiful stories in there about Yeshua. And the Celts knew him, and they regarded him as a divine master. And this was back at a time when there was Christianity, early Christianity. There were those that went with what we have today, and but there were those that viewed Yeshua as like a great ascended teacher, like a Buddha, if you will. And the Celts were that way. But the accounts that they have are just absolutely stellar, well worth reading. So the book is an incredible gem. And if somebody tells you they read the Kolbrin Bible over the weekend, my advice to you is step to the side quickly so the Pinocchio effect doesn't drill through your head.
Right.
I am going to tell you, with the Kolbrin, what it worked for, I would read 2 or 3 passages, and it would take me a week to sort it out. It was that dense. It's perfectly laconic. You have to think about it, because this history of this text was first papyrus. Okay. And so these writing materials were incredibly expensive. So today, we can type and spell check, and we bloat code whatever we're doing. Back then, every letter, it was like sending a telegram. You had to pay for every letter. And so they made every letter count, and they're incredibly laconic, which means they convey huge amounts of meaning with just a very few words.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it takes so much time, because they'll say in a couple of sentences something, and it just blows your mind away. Just does. That's the beauty of the Kolbrin.
Yeah, it took me 4 months of every day, 2-3 hours reading, sometimes 4 or 5, even 6 hours, dedicating my whole day to reading it to make it through that manuscript. So.
Oh, yeah. You've been there.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. It's intense. And there are parts of the Kolbrin that are just as dry as a biscuit. It's a compilation, but still the same. It's a phenomenal book. I think the thing about the Kolbrin is that the Kolbrin was written in 2 parts. The Egyptian part, all right, the Bronze Book, was written about the same time as the Old Testament, the 5 books of Moses. It originally started as the Great Book, and it was, for the Egyptians, it was their equivalent of a 9/11 report. How in the heck did this Exodus thing happen to us? And that was the genesis of it. It was called the Great Book, and a lot of it was destroyed with the sacking of the Library of Alexandria. What we do have today is what made its way vis-a-vis the Phoenicians all the way up to Great Britain. The Phoenicians in their day were the astronauts of their day. They were amazing. Their ships were strong, good handling. They could run in deep water. And it was because they had learned how to navigate by the stars. And other countries, other sailing cultures, they followed the coastlines. Because if they got out to sea, they'd lose their disorientation. They become disoriented. So not the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians could lay a course and sail right on. Amazing sailors. And so they were actually in what is Beirut right now. That's where they came from, on the Lebanese coast there. And their trading routes went as far as South Africa the Horn of South Africa to the south, and to England, or Great Britain, at the north. Great Britain, this was at the end of the Bronze Age, and Great Britain, if you will, was the Saudi Arabia of tin. And it was exporting a tremendous amount of tin. Tin is necessary for making bronze. Okay, so you need tin and copper to make bronze so that they could make the weapons of the day. And then once we went to steel, then that was the end of that. Right. But it is one of the researchers who was on the Providence, his name was Glenn Kimball, believes that during that missing time in the life of Yeshua, he actually did a lot of travel, which was how the Celts met him. He went with Joseph of Arimathea, who actually owned tin mines, and he was going up to pay a visit to see how his mines were going. And what they used to do was they would trade papyrus and other materials, that the things that the Celts wanted, and so it was a barter of goods. And the Phoenicians were the ones that were translating the original Egyptian version of the Great Book into the Phoenician language. And that is important because while the Phoenicians were wiped off the face of the earth by Rome, okay, totally destroyed. Nonetheless, what you have to understand is the English alphabet is actually the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenicians had 22 letters. Okay, that was it. We added a couple letters. But we're basically the Phoenician alphabet. And the Phoenician, so it was, well, the Great Book was translated into Phoenician on papyrus. Then it went to Great Britain, and there it was, these were worship texts. Glastonbury Abbey was founded by Joseph of Arimathea. He paid for it, and the manuscripts were stored there, along with the ancient Celtic texts, one being the Cole Book. And so the Kolbrin Bible today is literally a compilation, if you will, of the remaining fragments of the Egyptian Great Book and the Cole Book. The Egyptian texts date back to, as I said, the time of Moses and the writing of the 5 books of Moses, whereas with the Celtic texts that are in there, the last 5 books of the Kolbrin Bible, the Cole Book was assembled, it was pulled together at about the same time as the crucifixion. And also, no, excuse me, as the same time that the New Testament was being written. It was after. So the New Testament and the Old Testament, it's interesting, but the first 6 books were written at the same time the 5 books of Moses were being written, and the last 5 books the same time that the New Testament began to be written, and they paralleled each other. And the Glastonbury Abbey was set ablaze by order of the church because of that 11th chapter in the Kolbrin Bible, the one that was speaking about Yeshua, because that was heresy for the church. It was extra biblical. And so the abbey was burned, and a lot of the priests were slaughtered, but those that weren't were able to take what they could of all the manuscripts, and they fled to the North Highlands of Scotland. And there the texts remained for centuries and then it went through, evolved over changes. It went from it was the Celtic, went from the Phoenician to the Celtic, from the Celtic to early English, like Shakespearean English. Then It was just about sometime just before World War I. It was, it was then went from that to Shakespearean English to more Elizabethan, more modern English, and it was stored in London. And during the Blitz, when the bombs were falling, it was almost destroyed. Interesting, not by Hitler, but by a housewife who found the manuscript and thought it was immediately said, "Oh, this is extra biblical and it's heretical and it's got to be burned." And they were able to catch her before she burned the manuscripts and save it. And then they took it back up to the north of Scotland again. And in 1990, there were 4 monks left in this small order. And there was a prophecy in the Kolbrin Bible that came to pass that said, now is the time of the prophecies in the Kolbrin Bible. And so one of the monks decided it was time to release it, and he started getting it out. And there were, copies of it that went different places, New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain. It appears that, principally it was within the British realm that the copies were released. And what we did with it is we updated the text. The punctuation was difficult, made it difficult sometimes to read. So Janet, who was the editor on that, she spent a year, and she changed. We didn't change any of the text, not one word. We just changed the punctuation for readability, and then I created a citation system, much like what you have with the Bible. So you can just say, here, go to manuscript 3.7, and boom, you could go so you can study it. And plus we put some supplemental information, provenance in the front of the book. It took a lot. It took us almost 2 years to publish the text that we have out today. And, it's as old as the Bible.
It's an amazing manuscript. And, one of the things that I really like about it is that it preserves what I believe is indicated in the Bible as when the earth became without form and void. There's a whole chapter at the very beginning of the creation that speaks about the earth being destroyed and then recreated. Mm-hmm. And we see that this is actually, in line with the biblical manuscripts, but elaborates on it in great detail. And it also speaks about this particular object, the destroyer, having impact even in legacy on that particular event. And so definitely very interesting read. It's one of my most favorite manuscripts. It covers so much with regard to history and goes through a lot of, and from alternative perspective, but definitely something that it will take a long time to read, but it's well worth it in my opinion. And as you said, the language is so metaphorically beautiful, flowery, and poetic, and deeply meaningful with every word, every sentence. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the story of Humanitar and, the passion and the beauty. But what I love is the depth, the story of Sesuda and Hanok, the flood story. Right. Because it gives us many of the same elements as we have in the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, but much, much more detail.
Right.
Much, much more detail. And it is brilliant to study it. And, it's an interesting thing. There are, by some estimates, as many as 150 flood tale accounts in the culture and in the teachings and the writings of people across the world.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, there's just not one. And a
Right.
good example in Hawaii, on the Big Island of Hawaii, there's a place called Two Steps. It's where Captain Cook landed. All right. And they call it Two Steps because there's two little steps and you're down in the water. And it's the best snorkeling on the island for my money. I really like it there. And so they said when Cook landed, immediately started proselytizing and started reading the Bible. And they got to the story of Noah, and the native Hawaiians said, "Oh, no, you don't have to. And you didn't spell it right. You have an H. We only have N-O-A. But it's the same guy." And so, you know, they're hearing that flood account story, and there's all kinds of flood accounts. Flood account did. The flood, you know, it scientifically what happened with the Great Flood is that was a pole shift event. All right? That's what a pole shift does. Because there's not enough water. You know, it can rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And I will tell you, it did rain for 40 days and 40 nights, but not at the beginning. It was at the end of the event. Because the 40 days and 40 nights was a monsoon. The earth was cleaning itself after the problem. Then that would be bad enough as it was. But the real Noah's flood was tidal surges from massive, you know, the earth shifted on its poles. And keep in mind, in the lost book of Enki, the first calendar for our planet was created by Enki, the Anunnaki god who supposedly created us. And that calendar was a lunar calendar for our planet, and it had only 2 seasons, summer and winter. So where did fall and spring come from? Well, if your planet is tilted on its axis 23.5 degrees, now you got 4 seasons. Otherwise, if it's straight up, you got 2. And so what happened was, during that pole shift event, that could have been what actually tilted the axis of the planet, which would mean the oceans, all the major water basins, all the big water comes out of its basins and just scours the continents. And if you're in an ark, all right, what is an ark? And the story of the ark, I think, is a relevant story because of today, and we're repeating. And imagine Noah. Let's take a human view of Noah. And there he is. The animals are in. The main hatch is closed. The ark's buttoned up. Now comes the flooding. Now that's the thing about, and I know you remember Sesuda and Hanok, because that's memorable passages. And you know that where was the ark put? On the side of a hill. Where?
Up in the mountains.
Up in the mountains, right? Now, why do you think it was on a hill up in the mountains? Take a shot at this one.
Well, you know, it was said that the waters would come to him because they were making fun of him with, you know, there's no water around anywhere. And then him building the ark up in the mountain, that's why they were ridiculing. You know, of course, I have differences of opinions with regard to the stories and even, you know, your beliefs, and I, you know, respect your opinion on all that. But certainly, you know, I've read a lot of everything, and even with the Sumerian Chronicles, they speak about how the ice cap had slipped off of Antarctica, which, you know, is again difference of opinion with some of the stuff that I've studied and examined, but I read and study all of it, and it is interesting. There's a text called The Legends of the Patriarchs and the Prophets that brings out numerous accounts worldwide of stories, as you said, of the flood narrative being preserved. And my friend Gary Wayne, he wrote a book called The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, and he covers also in similarity numerous parallel events of the flood narrative from different cultures and civilizations. And so definitely something that is caught up in the memory of humanity worldwide.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about Sesuda and Hanok, because it's consistent with other. What happens is
hold
the
on,
stories.
Marshall. Hold on, we're at break.
Okay.
We'll be right back, everyone.
The seeker of lost paradise may seem a fool to those who have never sought the other worlds. Christ told us in Revelation 2, "Remember from whence thou art fallen, and do the first works." What many people don't realize about the fall of humanity is that Adam and Eve were initially bright-natured, and that they were placed into the garden of God to dress and tend it, and that being deceived and tempted and eating from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that in that moment that you touch thereof you shall die, that they come under the authority of death in those moments, and since their fall have been banished from the place of the immortals. This concept becomes very clear in the work of the forgotten Edenic books of Adam and Eve. And as we study and read into this material, this knowledge will come to light, and it will help you to understand that being restored to our bright nature, our first estate through Christ, that the reason he had to take on embodiment and enter into mortal flesh form was in order to not only redeem the ancestors of Adam, the children of light, but also to rectify us and to restore us to our first estate in this manner, defeating death and bringing forth salvation with the promise of the cross.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
On Truth Frequency Radio, and I am joined by my friend Marshall Masters, who has put out a lot of information on his website, YOWUSA, YOWUSA.com, as well as MarshallMasters.com. And well, I'm going to give you a chance, Marshall, if you would finish up your thought, and then I want to go into some of the Q stuff and what's going on with regard to current events, and especially with, the COVID, the economic crisis, the shutdown, the whole thing with the, quick, fast production and the pushing forth of mandated vaccine with regard to the COVID and all that, and where you think things are going in the future. I know that's a lot said, but, just...
yeah, that was, but I got it.
All right, cool.
Let's start with, I want to wrap that one when we were talking about the story of Sasuda and Hanok, the flood account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to observe something that we didn't, neither you nor I mentioned.
All right.
Okay. Is that in the story, what happens, it begins with strangers who come to Sasuda, King Sasuda, to tell him this is going to happen.
Uh-huh.
All right. When you look at flood narratives, there's always these, say, divine visitations, these intercessions. Someone comes to tell them something. Now, I want to prove to you that it was divine intercession. It could be angels, could be aliens, but it sure wasn't human beings. It was somebody with either a tremendous amount of technology or an ascended soul. Because, all right, you may, as you pointed out, the water came and it met the ark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had to know where that would happen. If they put the ark too close, what'll happen? The wave will hit it, push it over, roll it over, end over end, and smash it to splinters.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just take it apart like hydraulic sandpaper. All right? That's the wave would do if it was too close. But if it was too far away, the wave would come and go, and the ark would still be sitting there. The whole point of it was that the ark had to be placed where the water would come underneath the beam, lift the vessel off the chocks, and pull it out to sea. That required knowledge of a future event, because that would be necessary to determine the physical placement of the ark itself. All right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't happenstance. Look, it could have gone for the ark. If the ark had been 100 yards uphill, more, maybe just enough water to push it, move it on its chocks and roll it on its side, but that's it. No buoyancy. Or if it's 100 yards down, maybe it could have just shattered the vessel. All right, broke it. And by hitting it and going over it and taking it apart. So the positioning of the ark is only, you have to have incredible science, or you have to be an angel, but you can't be an everyday Joe not to come with that placement. That's the magic of the Kolbrin. And so, when you're reading the Kolbrin, these are the kinds of surprises that always come up. They always do.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly the event and the foretelling and the prophetic nature of it is supernatural, no matter how you consider it. But let's move on to all the things that I had just previously mentioned with the COVID, the economic crisis, the shutdown, where you are and what you think about all of this. And are you one that ascribes to the numbers that are being released and the massive as far as all the reported deaths, and do you believe the news and the hype, and or where are you with all that?
Well, first off, let's call it what it is, a plandemic, not a
There
pandemic.
you go. I'm with you, brother.
Okay. And, I got to tell you, because I've been writing about it, but I meet people out in the parking lot, and you go shopping and all, and I just start a conversation. I like to do that, kind of informally polling people. And I'm going, hey, what do you think about wearing masks? And 3 out of 5 people said it's bullshit. Excuse me. Sorry. They said it was bullpucky. And 1 out of 4 said they were starting to feel that way. And then 1 out of 5 gave me a very stern lecture about how Dr. Fauci sits at the left hand of God.
Right.
People understand, and people, there's a very vocal minority, but the great majority is looking at this, and you don't see, they're out there, they're waving the flags, they're having the parades, they're driving their boats along intercoastals with waving the flags. The mainstream media won't cover that. What you have to understand is that there's a fight right now between globalists and the alliance. The globalists, and if you want to know who globalists are, every president after Reagan and before Trump was a globalist. And the globalist agenda is to ensure the greatest death toll during the coming Planet X flyby. And they want it so that 90 to 95% of the people die. Because 500 million people is all the slaves they need. And then if they need more slaves, hey, give us a couple of bottles of Muscatel and a few Viagra, and we'll work wonders. We breed like rats, so they just breed us. They think of us like breed animals, and like fish and useless eaters and all this kind of stuff. And so for them, it was a big eugenics bonanza. Look, well, how do you get it down to 95%? Look, our own government says if the grid collapses catastrophically and we lose power across the country, 9 out of 10 Americans are going to die because we don't know how to live without electricity. It's that simple. Okay? So, say to somebody, do you know how to make a smokeless fire? They'll be lucky if they know how to make a fire, period.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Yeah, most people don't.
You take a potato and you give it to someone from the country who understands the land, and you give them a potato and they're hungry, they're going to cut that potato up into 4 and grow 4 plants and feed their family. You give that potato to somebody from the city, they're going to fry it in oil and eat it. Okay? Because that's all they know to do.
Right.
So there is that mentality difference. But the globalists want death. They want death on a massive scale. They want to reduce numbers, and they want absolute control. Now, they're opposed by the alliance, which are the freedom movements. And the alliance is, in the United States, it's military. It's our military is at war with the globalists. And the globalists are the bankers and, the faceless ones who run the show, so to speak. And this is the reason why With China, we're having all the problems because China was the prodigal son, if you will, of the ruling elites. It would become the central manufacturing hub of the world. They had all their plans, and it's difficult for me to listen to people talk about things when they're coming into awareness. Because when they're coming into awareness, it's always, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this other thing, they're doing that other thing, they're doing this alternate other thing, and they're doing that alternate other thing, and they go on in infinite loops of they, and never once do they ever say what we are doing, the freedom fighters. They don't know. They're clueless.
Right. Yeah,
so
China is definitely
on all of the plans
the
of the globalists, which are there, and but it's not rolling out. It's not, things are not going according to plan, and there's a lot of disruption going on, and that's the reason why they're lighting up the streets with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, China. Every bad actor, the globalists are pulling together every bad actor on the planet they can find and throwing them at Trump and the Patriots. And if Biden and Kamala Harris win, I don't know how Kamala Harris, how they could do it. She's a naturalized. She's not a natural born citizen that's required by the Constitution to be the president. You have to be, a natural born citizen. She's naturalized. One parent was from India when she was born, and the other, I think, from Africa. All right. And so neither parents had citizenship. So she wasn't natural born.
Well,
and
they did it with Obama.
Natural born. So what happens is, let's say Biden and Kamala Harris win. What'll happen is that Kamala Harris will not, Biden would then take the bow because he's a straw man. All right. And Kamala Harris would not be able to become the president, which means Nancy Pelosi would leapfrog her to become president of the country. And then we would have a Pelosi-Harris White House. And so, all the stuff that they're doing is horribly devious. It's, and it's just wondering, Lincoln said you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all the time. And but they're sure going for it. And so what will be interesting this month is, and this is what the Patriots are all really waiting for, is for years now, it's like, okay, so when you going to finally open a can of whoop ass and we see some perp walks?
Right.
When are you going to open up some whoop ass? When are you going to do something? And it's all, we're preparing.
Right, yeah.
Preparing. And if Trump hasn't opened up a can of whoop ass by the time the election comes, I'm afraid he'll lose. I'm afraid he'll lose. Because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to just, what the hell? You promised us justice, and, you come up empty-handed. And so he can't afford that.
Yeah,
and if
the whole drain the swamp.
The globalists want him dead. They've already said, Kamala Harris is like, oh, we've got to go criminal on him, and we got to take him down. And they want to crucify him. They want to hang him. They want to kill him. This is a blood feud. So if Trump and Pence and the rest of the people in the White House, if they lose the White House, they lose this election, they stand to lose their lives. I think that would motivate the hell out of me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it should be. There's that whole thing with the Simpsons and how they portray that Trump is assassinated in that whole cartoon, which seems to be prophetic in some degree as well. Even with his, election, I don't know if you know about all that, but yeah, a lot of strange prophetic things been revealed on The Simpsons.
Yeah, and we're all sitting back and we're, trying to make sense of it all. And the bottom line is there are a lot of people that do want to see justice, real justice. And because for them, the attacks that have been going on are the attacks on the government, on the country itself. I mean, I see exactly what Soros is doing. This is he's indoctrinated with fascisti, black shirt for Mussolini, brown shirts for Hitler. This was how they got power. They went out and terrified the hell out of people. And then they perverted the electoral system, and they used, they forced alliances. So they used fear and manipulation to take power. And that's the same. They're running the same playbook here. Burn the country down to keep power. And that's what they're doing. They're going to burn it down. And so, the question is are we smart enough to hold on to the freedom we have? This is really, this I think is the big question that has everybody silent right now. And they're wondering, are we so soft as a people? Have we lost such regard for our constitutional freedoms? We're just not going to care. Whatever it takes to make quiet. We just want to go back to work. That's all. Make money. Make money, go back to work. Entertainment, go whatever we're going to do. Go back to our consumer lives. So if we vote for Harris, we vote for Biden, then we're going to go back to quiet. And yeah, it's quiet because it's quiet when you're getting robbed blind. But that, I think, is the big question right now. Is the country going to take a big-ass stupid pill and destroy itself? Because that's what this election's going to be. We're either going to become a socialist state and the Constitution is gone. The Constitution is toast. Okay? It just gets in the way of what they want to do. And if the people say, oh, we don't care, do it, then that's it. I did business in Russia for many years, right after Perestroika. I saw what happens after communism. It's not pretty. I heard all the stories about living under communism. First thing Biden comes out and he says, I'm going to make everybody mandatory wear masks for 3 months. And the Constitution does not give him the power to do that. All right. But the Constitution doesn't matter to these people, but it's in the final analysis, it will be the lowest common denominator of the nation that's going to have the biggest effect on it. It's going to be, divide fringe groups. They're going to go after their housewives in the suburbs who find
Thank you everybody for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.